Listen to this episode if you want a recent case study on the biggest brand in the world, Apple. Is Apple starting their downfall? Apple is the biggest brand by evaluation in the world. They were evaluated in 2024 at a $517 billion globally, up against, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Samsung, all of those. But are they actually falling behind? This is a conversation that we have started to see a lot on social media. My name is Madison Page. Welcome to the podcast. If you know me, you know that my brain works in business case studies. I am constantly looking at how businesses are working, what is the reaction to it, what's happening with the consumer, and what it seems like, because this business is publicly traded, is actually happening long-term within their brand. They just released their iPhone 17, and the reaction to it was not what they actually expected. There's a lot of takeaways that you can learn as a business owner, whether it is big or small, from this brand, because interest is down for them. New purchases in the first month of this iPhone 17 are down, and I want to talk about what you can actually take away from this. Today, we are breaking down their biggest pitfalls, leading to many leaving the brand, what they need to do moving forward, and what they have done incredibly well and utilizing as their secret weapon, because of course, Apple is not actually going anywhere, but they might be on the downturn. So we are going to talk about all of that today. Before we do, I just want to formally introduce myself for 10 quick seconds in case this is your first episode. My name is Madison Page. I am the host of the Small Business Growth Podcast, and I am a business growth specialist. I help small businesses turn into brands so they can become the household name that they have always desired to become. We put out new episodes every Tuesday and Friday. So if you like this episode, if you'd love some case studies, strategies, mindset, talking about business in a fun conversational type of way, make sure that you are subscribed. Like I said, Apple isn't going anywhere anytime soon. It is the biggest brand in the world by evaluation in 2024. They will always be a massive brand, at least for the foreseeable future. However, there's a couple of things here that they have to make sure that they are doing that you can actually learn from. And they're right up against Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Samsung, and we're starting to see a downturn that could be concerning for Apple if they don't make some of these adaptations. So let's talk about their secret weapon and their biggest downfall right now. First things first is their innovation. iPhone 17 just came out, and the overall consumer reaction to it is, what's the difference? All of these other phones have been this way on Samsung and Google and all of these other brands for years. This is the same phone that you released last year with just slight differences. There's a lot of marketing discrepancies around Apple. They used to be the pioneer of innovation. They had the iPod and the iPhone and the iPad and the MacBook. From the very beginning, I had an iPod Nano, the little clip-on one. I had the MP3 player. I had the iPod Touch. I have an iPad. I have a MacBook. I have an iPhone. I am an avid Apple user, despite not really liking the brand Apple. We'll get into that. But they are known as the pioneer of innovation. But if you look at today, there are incremental upgrades, less of a wow factor, and fewer people buying every time they release a new product. Every September or so, they unveil their new iPhone. It is clockwork. Everybody knows that they do it every year. If you've been a part of my world for any amount of time, I tell you to not do anything too regimented because people are going to depend on it. And if you create a brand that people are only excited about your launches, it can actually be very detrimental. That is what Apple did, is they have made it their norm to launch a new phone every year, and their innovation has slowed down. They really aren't adding much to these phones in contrast with these other brands. Samsung has foldables and they have more hardware innovation. And NVIDIA is doing AI chips and they're leading the edge in tech and new things. Microsoft has tons of AI integrations with Copilot. And here, Apple comes out with the new iPhone and they don't even have Siri and AI integrated yet. There is strong frustration from long-term Apple fans who crave this groundbreaking technology because they have positioned themselves as paving the way of the future innovation. Yet their innovation is slowing down. They have now launched 3 or 4 years in a row with very small changes, basically just aesthetic differences. All of a sudden, this one is thinner, and all of a sudden, this one has a different block on the back, and all of a sudden, there are very few changes that are actually going on. They're saying the camera's getting better. There might be one thing on the camera that's better, but it's just matching up to what Samsung and Google has been doing for years. So this begs the question, if their innovation, which is what they're known for, which is their unique value proposition, is slowing down, what is that going to do for their sales? Basically, we have seen this year with the iPhone 17 launch. The iPhone 17 unveiled their new things, and again, they had the best camera ever. It's the strongest iPhone ever. It's the thinnest iPhone ever. All things that people don't care about. Yes, the camera is something that they care about. However, a lot of people are looking at these other options and saying, I'm going to switch over. I am wanting to switch my device over to an Android, over to a Samsung, to a Google, whatever that might be, on my next iteration. I don't want to buy another rinse and repeat iPhone. Why are you guys making a big deal out of nothing? It's like that Devil Wears Prada scene where they're like, oh, they are just so different. Which belt are we choosing? They are just so different. And they literally look the exact same with slight differences. People are starting to say, these really aren't all that different. You can't keep hyping this up. I will not keep paying $1,500 or $1,200 every single year just for the exact same thing. People are buying iPhones less frequently. They are upgrading in more years, year over year. There are fewer people on the wait list year over year. Of course, there are going to always be the ride or dies that want the latest technology, that just want the latest iPhone immediately. However, Apple fans are growing more and more frustrated. If you go and you look at the commentary online, in the comments of the Apple unveiling of the iPhone 17, if you look at the comments online of videos that is being made about Apple and about the iPhone 17, most of them are negative. Some of them are saying, okay, these are some of the cool features, but most of them are actually negative. This is why I'm switching over to a Samsung. This is why this is the last iPhone I will ever buy. This is why I don't care about any of these features. So it's really interesting because the commentary has really gone downhill. The feeling of Apple being this pioneer of innovation is really going away. However, many customers are staying anyway. And this is where strategy really comes into play. What we've talked about already that you can kind of take away is that launching the same thing over and over again, too regimented at the exact same time, is actually going to hurt your business, because I would rather Apple take a year off and come back in 2 years with an actual new product than just trying to pump something out that's new just because that's what they've always done. I would rather them put some flexibility in this and actually say, okay, we're going to wait until we have an actual new product that is different and that's new, and then we will unveil it. Because people wait for September. There's so much energy and so much excitement around these big unveilings, and then everybody is disappointed because they're rushing something out. So you, big or small, your brand, something you can take away from this is don't do anything too regimented. Make sure that if you're going to have a unique value proposition of innovation and that you're leading the cause, that it's actually true and accurate and that you're living up to that value. And you have to listen to your customers. What do customers actually want? Now let's talk about why customers are staying anyway. Because despite this downturn, if you look at Apple's stock price, it continues to go up. It's not that Apple is actually struggling, which is something that I think is really interesting. Why customers stay anyway is because they have this ecosystem lock-in. To be totally honest, I don't think my iPhone is the best phone out there for what I do. At this point, do I ever think that I'm going to switch from my iPhone? I have had an iPhone since, what was that? Probably 2010. I've had an iPhone. I don't know what this is. It's probably like a 12 or something like that. But I have the iPhone. I have an iPad. I have my MacBook. Why? Because everything speaks so seamlessly. I work all day long from my phone into my laptop, and I'm airdropping, I'm iMessaging, I'm FaceTiming. Everything is seamlessly synced. My photos from my phone are on my laptop. Everything works so seamlessly together that it would only be inefficient for me to have an Android because things just wouldn't speak the same. My MacBook wouldn't speak the same to my phone. The ecosystem lock-in that Apple has is they basically make you have to stay within their products in order for them to continue to communicate. There was actually a lawsuit here with, Android being booted out. Everything that Apple does seamlessly integrates into Androids, but everything Android does isn't seamlessly integrating into Apple. That was strategic to keep people feeling like they need an iPhone, need the Apple product in order to make everything function properly. The next one is the familiarity and the simplicity. People know the products and they don't really want to switch. They don't want to learn something. The next one is the community identity. Something that Apple has done a really good job with, like I just said, is they have made having an Apple device feel like the premium. Everything speaks together. You have the blue bubbles, and having the green bubble would just, be a hit to the ego. Owning Apple is more than the device. It's like the lifestyle choice. It is the premium choice. It is the thing that is making them say you are either an Apple owner, and there's this negative connotation around being an Android owner or having a Samsung or a Google phone. Why? Is because Apple has strategically done that. They have made things function worse for other people. I was going to send a message out to all my aunts and uncles for my wedding coming up yesterday. And one of my aunts has an Android, and it made the whole text green, and it just didn't really work out. People couldn't, function within the group chat normally. And that's because Apple strategically designed it that way to be like an us versus them strategy. They say, we are Apple, we are a community, we make everything work seamlessly. And in order to have our devices work seamlessly, you have to stay within our devices, and everybody else is an outsider. They created this exclusivity bubble, which is one of the strongest sales psychology tactics out there, is this little exclusivity bubble that if you aren't within that bubble, you're an outsider and you're weird and it's an ego hit, right? That's what they want you to feel. The next one is that people with iPhones, they have a lot of trust around the iPhone. They feel like they prioritize privacy and design and ease of use. They've created this loyalty saying this is the premium. They've created this trust that just because they are saying they are the leaders of innovation, their audience and their community is trusting them without ever going anywhere else. Why? Because they don't want to be the outsider. They don't want their functionality to go down the toilet. They don't want to feel like these other products. They don't even want to look at these other products because they don't care about the features, because they need their items to seamlessly adapt. Like I said, I really don't even like the brand of Apple. I don't like the business. I don't like their business practices. However, at this point, at least in my mind, I might change my mind. I don't know if other things start to change the way that they work. However, I do not have any plans of ever switching. If my MacBook dies, I will go the next day and buy another MacBook. When this iPhone dies, I'm going and buying another iPhone. Why is that? Is because they speak so seamlessly together. I have now created such an ecosystem that I don't really want to change. I know how all of these things work. I'm stuck in my ways. I trust everything that's working. Even though the innovation is not living up to what they're saying that they really are, I am going to continue to be here. Now, their secret power that Apple has mastered is community. Apple's real product is their community and the ecosystem of owning an iPhone. The takeaway for you here is, how can we make people be so brand loyal to you because of the functionality and of what it really means for your consumer to own your product? The case study here is, if we talk about the blue bubbles versus the green bubbles, it is truly like this weird cultural identity and exclusivity that they have built, because if you want full functionality, you have to be a part of the cool club. You have to be a part of the blue bubbles in the text messages. What they have mastered here is that exclusivity feeling of community. Hey, I'm jumping in here for 30 quick seconds for those of you who are loving the podcast but wish we could dive deeper into every episode topic together. I have actually started a completely free podcast community called the Small Business Cafe for exactly this purpose. Inside this community, we dive deeper into every podcast episode, provide bonus resources, and actually host completely free monthly coaching calls with me, so you can get your questions answered. Plus, you get to submit your questions for our Friday coaching session episodes and connect with other founders too. If you have been loving being a part of this podcast and want to connect with other brand founders, plus get extra support from me, click the link in the show notes below to join. Apple has one of the highest brand retention rates in the entire world because of everything that we've talked about, because of this exclusivity, because of the community. community because the functionality isn't the same if they go outside of working with your brand. Now, that's something I don't even really like about the brand personally, like from a values perspective. But as a consumer, I love that everything communicates so well together. It is both the selling point and the point that makes me not really like the brand. They make you have to spend this premium for not a premium product, so your products all seamlessly operate together. Because of the ecosystem that it has built, if you look on paper, I would be a ride or die brand loyal Apple person because I will forever buy back from them to keep my functionality as seamless as possible. Now, if I look at their brand, I don't love this brand value that they're basically cutting out everybody else and that you're part of the cool club or you're not. How they've built this community is that they have consistent design language that is simple and easy for people to use. My 94-year-old grandfather has an iPad and an iPhone because it was so easy for him to use. We could teach him the simple way. They work really seamlessly together. When he had one, he knew how to operate the other one. He can FaceTime us. My 94-year-old grandfather is using these innovative devices. My grandfather, the same grandfather that talks about being born before the ballpoint pen, is using this device that is so smart and innovative because it is simple and it is compatible and it has simple, consistent design language across many different devices. There are many things here. You know, they do have the customer support. They do have this extension of their community into these other areas. But what they have absolutely mastered is the power of community, brand loyalty, and exclusivity. Some of the three highest triggers of sales psychology around. Us versus them mentality. You must, use our product to have the full functionality. And this is why our product is better than everybody else. They have basically mastered this is what makes our products different than everybody else. So what does this mean for you, for entrepreneurs, small business owners, and how can you really put this into your business? First, innovation matters, but community is what actually keeps the customers. Yes, your innovation does matter. Yes, we want, at the end of the day, your unique value proposition, the thing that you are saying separates you from everybody else being true. You have to stick to it and you have to, really want that overall. We want to be able to release a new product that sticks to your unique value proposition. I just did a case study a couple of weeks ago talking about how when brands change their unique value proposition, it is mass chaos within their world, within their sales. If you go and you change your unique value proposition, it really can be really detrimental on your brand. It's the one mistake that many brands do is they say, this is what separates us. And then we're no longer separating based on that because why would you buy from them? Apple has stayed consistent with it. However, they're not actually fulfilling the promise of what they're saying, that they are the leaders in innovation. What they are now doing is they're just releasing the same thing, rinse and repeat over and over again. What they would be better off doing is I would rather you launch less consistently and actually produce something that your audience really wants, that you really like, and that actually fulfills your unique value proposition. The next one is that people don't always buy the best product. They buy from what makes them feel connected, what brand they like the most, and truly the ego that it has behind it. A lot of people buy an iPhone strictly because they don't want to be the green bubble. And that is such an interesting sociology experiment, is that because Apple has done such a good job of the us versus them mentality, is that you're the cool kids or you're the not, that many people are not buying the product because it is the best product on the market. I know my iPhone is not the best phone on the market. I will continue to buy because of the functionality of it, because of how it all works, as well as just because it is what it has been and I'm connected and I feel like it is the most functional possibility out there. The next one is that even though I hate this as a consumer, it is a good lesson to build systems that make it hard for your customers to leave. How can we first leverage exclusivity within your brand? How can we make people feel like they are a part of something, they are a part of the cool kids from being with your brand? And how can we also make a product that is hard to get people to go elsewhere? Why? Either the messaging that's out there, the functionality of your actual product is better than the rest, or you are saying that your functionality is better than the rest because that's what Apple is doing, or creating something that is creating an ecosystem within your brand. How can we make it where people have to stay within your brand in order to sell? I mean, if I'm looking in front of me, I don't know how much my iPad was, probably $600-$800. My MacBook, I don't even know how much that is, probably $2,000. My phone is probably $1,200. Like I'm looking here at like $3,000 to $4,000 worth of products, plus my Apple Pencil. Like, this was $100. I literally never even have it charged. Plus I have the keyboard as well, the Apple keyboard, which was like a stupid amount of money. And so like, I'm truly looking at thousands of dollars of Apple products as I sit here and tell you, I don't love the methods of what they do. I don't think that they're the best products on the market. And I don't think that they are the leaders of innovation anymore. Why? Because of the connectivity that they all have. Because I feel like they seamlessly work together. They have created an ecosystem of the brand. I want to feel like everything seamlessly works together. Their functionality outworks their actual innovation, in my opinion. Now, that is something that we're seeing very often. If you can go back, if Apple can remain a global leader by relying on community, what could happen if you built that same level of community within your business? If you have listened to my podcast for any amount of time, you know that I preach community. What Apple has done is they have built a community of course, their ride or dies, the people that are standing in line day one of iPhone 17 coming out. But they also have built brand loyalty through this community, like me. I wouldn't say that I absolutely adore the Apple community. I would say I adore how my Apple products work, the functionality of them, and how I will never move anywhere else because I am so bought into Apple that I don't even know how. If I got an Android, I have no idea how I would do so many things. They have made it hard for me to leave. They have created this exclusivity within their functionality of how that all really works. So I want to wrap this back up and talk about where we kind of started here. Is this slowing of innovation actually the downfall of Apple? We will see. However, what we are seeing in the last 3 to 6 months is the shift in conversation around Apple. This has been happening for a little while, but it's starting to ramp up and up and up. Is that consumers are increasingly more and more frustrated with a new iPhone coming out that really isn't any different than the last one. Is this just a shift from innovation to community power? Are they going to shift their messaging into talking about more of the functionality and things like that instead of the innovation because their innovation is slowing? It's going to be very interesting to see what it's going to look like moving forward. Their stock price has not slowed and it has not gone down. Their interest in iPhone 17 has slowed and there wasn't as many people on the wait list as there was last year for the 16. We have to look at where in your brand can we utilize some of these things? Where in your brand can we utilize understanding that launching a new product that is not fulfilling your unique value proposition is never worth it because you're going to start to build this resentment. You're going to start to build this lack of trust and this lack of, buy-in to your business. And the community side is your absolute secret power. This is what I do with all of my businesses, all of my clients, whether you're starting a pre-revenue business or even if you are already a household name, community is what you need to focus on. How can we get buy-in? How can we build brand loyalty to you over everybody else? Because if you have brand loyalty, people are going to continue to buy. That is how Apple will not see this downturn. And that is because people will continue to buy. However, there is a end game to that point. If Apple continues to not innovate for 3 to 5 years and all of a sudden all of these other devices have figured out how to build, this world, have built this AI capacity, have built more innovative tech than what Apple has, there is an extent of which this will fall off. Your customers' loyalty, trust, and commitment to constantly coming back will start to fall off. If people continue to feel this way next September, there will be more people that move over to Android. And then there will be more people that move away from Apple, meaning that the green versus blue bubble, the us versus them, is going to start to find this middle ground. There is a time frame of elasticity of which people will wait out to see if the next Apple product is better. I don't even know what this is. I think it's a 12. It might be an 11, an iPhone. And I have not needed to buy a new product because I don't think the next one is good enough. But if this dies, I will go and buy a new one, but you don't see me waiting in line. Like I remember when this phone came out, we were so excited about it. This was 4 or 5 years ago at this point. We were so excited for this phone to come out because the camera was incredible and there was all of these new features that you could use when you had this phone. But now I don't have that same level of excitement. We didn't, trade our phones in early on the 17 or the 16 or the 15 or whatever because we don't care about the new features that are coming out. They just weren't worth it. So we're seeing this slow degradation of the brand loyalty and the brand excitement. If I was Apple, If I don't have something innovative by next year, I would be halting production and saying, we're going to postpone until we can find something innovative. Because your customers and your community, if you start to betray them too many times over and over again, their trust and their love and their loyalty will run out. And that is something that we are not willing to put together here. So is this really Apple's downfall? What do they have to do moving forward? And what do you think that they might do? How do you feel around Apple right now? Again, if anything breaks, I'm still buying Apple, but I'm not rushing to buy it. I'm not trading in my MacBook that's working just fine for a new MacBook just because the new MacBook came out. Because in my opinion, their marketing and their actual delivery is not actually leading up to their unique value proposition that they have. It hasn't impacted them yet on their bottom line, but I'm sure that it will if they don't make a change quickly, because the consumer confidence, the consumer conversation is flipping. And the more and more that they continue in this negative feedback loop, the more that that is going to shift. And then all of a sudden it's going to be like, if you have an iPhone, it's old news. You're the outdated one, because all of this other innovation, which is what they're saying, their unique value proposition is going to surpass them. And everybody is going to start to make that big decision to move over. So don't just focus on selling your products. You have to focus on building a brand community that keeps people for life. How can you utilize exclusivity in your brand to make people feel really connected to you? How can you utilize community building on social media within your devices? How can you utilize the actual functionality to make people want to stay and kind of have to stay within your brand in order to maintain it? Through college, through high school, I had a Microsoft laptop, but now I have an Apple and I will never go back because of how the functionality works. However, if that functionality does not withstand, if these other businesses start to come up with how to keep this same kind of like iCloud system and their innovation is stronger, I would have no problem switching all of my devices over if I feel like there is a stronger ROI and simplicity around using some of those other devices. Think about how can you utilize this in your brand, in your strategy, in your marketing, talking about your unique value proposition. How can you utilize these sales psychology triggers of community building, exclusivity, functionality, messaging, positioning, that all of these things that Apple is utilizing here. I hope that you like this episode. I love doing these case study episodes. It's how my brain works. I feel like I am just sharing all of my internal thoughts with you, having a nice little space to share those things. If you like them, would love to hear it. It's one of my favorite things when I get DMs from you guys that you like these episodes versus these other episodes. It makes my life so much easier to see what you love, and you get to have more episodes that you really love as well. I love you. I'm rooting for you. I'm in your corner always. I will see you in the next episode. If you found today's episode helpful and are looking for more tangible ways to grow your business, make sure you are subscribed to the show. If you want to dive deeper into this topic more, click the link in the show notes and join our completely free podcast community where we dive into every single podcast topic, as well as give some bonus support and free coaching calls. And finally, if you are interested in getting my eyes on your business to find your hidden opportunities to scale, apply to work with me one-on-one in the show notes or on our website. Remember, it's not enough to listen. Don't forget to implement too. I love ya. I'll see you in the next episode.